Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural edition of Diamond Time Travel. This is going to be a new episode that's going to air on my YouTube channel, Rookie Card Collector 123. As the name implies, we're going to cover various points throughout baseball history. We're going to have episodes covering individual ball players, baseball teams, different eras and different decades, different card sets. So we're going to encompass a little bit of everything. And I have my good friend who's going to be the co-host of the series, Cesar Lopez, here with me. Cesar's a fellow Floridian and longtime card collector. Cesar does not have a YouTube channel yet at this point, but he's expressed definite interest at some point in the near future, looking to start his channel. So trying to give him some positive building blocks. And so the basis for the series in a nutshell is we're going to go through baseball history, and we're going to highlight some episodes will cover individual players, some episodes will cover teams, some episodes will cover different eras or decades, some will cover card sets. So it's going to be a nice variety, a little bit of everything. Cesar and I will be working together on these, and we're also planning to invite, on a somewhat regular basis, have guests come on that have their areas of collecting expertise and specialties. They make things a little more interesting. Every episode is going to include a lot of card showing from various collectors and various collections. And we're ready to get started on today's episode. Before I introduce the topic, I'm going to ask Cesar to introduce himself, give a little background on his collecting career, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you, Phil. So I began collecting as a small child. I was 8 years old when I first bought a pack of 72 Topps baseball cards. Around that time, I had seen a movie that I later found out was titled Fear Strikes Out, which was the Jimmy Pearsall story. And in that movie, the players were wearing, uniforms that said Boston across the chest and had a B on the cap. So when I bought the cards in 72, 73, 74, I started separating the Red Sox players. And I began collecting Red Sox. And then the 75 World Series just made me a Red Sox fan for life. And from then on, I was collecting mainly Red Sox players. Since I was from Miami, I also collected Miami Dolphins, and and I grew in the hobby like that. I went off to college. I put the baseball cards away. Later, like 8 years later, when I just recently married, my mom called me and told me that she was cleaning up my old room and there were a bunch of boxes in the closet. So I went home, I found the boxes. It was my old baseball cards. I brought them home. My wife was like, "What is that?" So long story short, I ended up getting a table in a baseball card show in the mall, started selling baseball cards. I did that for a few years. As time went on, I learned about Cuban baseball cards. I was born in Cuba, so learning that there were baseball cards in Cuba was a shock to me and just an amazing area. And I started looking into that. But I never stopped being a Red Sox fan, and I never stopped collecting Red Sox cards, even though my main area of expertise now is Cuban baseball. The Red Sox were always dear to my heart. So this is what brings us today to this episode. We're going to be talking about Ted Williams and his baseball cards. We'll be showing cards from my collection, and we'll be giving more information. Phil, did you want to say anything now?
Yeah, I'm going to start presenting. Cesar has sent me images of all the cards we're going to cover today. Today's episode, Ted Williams, Cesar has such an extensive collection that we're actually going to break it down into either 3 or 4 episodes. And we're going to cover basically chronologically. So we're going to start today with his earliest years and his earliest cards. which means from 1938, I believe, is the earliest piece that Cesar has. And we're going to run through 1946, basically just the end of World War II. And then our next episode will pick up with 1947 and go through about the first half of the 50s. And then after that, we'll continue up through the end of Ted's career. So I'm going to put on the first slide.
So we're going to start talking about Ted in 1938. I don't actually have a card of him from 1938 because he didn't have a card. So Ted was signed by the Red Sox in 1938 as a 19-year-old. He went to spring training. He got there late because there was flooding in California. Spring training didn't go very well for him in 1938. The Red Sox outfield was pretty much set. They had Joe Vosnick, who had 201 hits to lead the league in 1938 with a 324 batting average. They had Doc Kramer, who batted 301 and was an all-star that year. And they had Ben Chapman, who batted 340 in 1938. So Ted was, the odd man out. He, of course, thought he had done well enough in spring training to earn a spot on the team. He was sent down to their Minneapolis American Association team. They thought Ted needed a little bit more maturing, needed a little bit more, growing up before they called him back up. Ted went down to the Millers, and he just tore the American Association apart. He won the Triple Crown in the American Association. He hit 43 home runs, 142 RBIs, 366 batting average. He ended up leading the league in runs scored, total bases, walks. I mean, he just tore the league apart. So the Red Sox didn't have a choice. They had to bring him up in 1939. So when Ted goes to, spring training in 39, he had a spot on the team. The Red Sox went ahead and traded Ben Chapman. They traded a guy who batted 340 to make room for Ted Williams. And also, interesting enough, Ben Chapman's number was 9 on the team, which Ted Williams then adopted his number. We're seeing here the 1939 play ball Ted Williams rookie card. Beautiful picture of him swinging. You can see the 9 on the back. This card is, my Ted Williams rookie card. I got this card. Basically, it's an authentic altered, but it's a beautiful card. It's a beautiful photo. I buy cards. I don't buy, numbers or whatever. I look at the card. If I like the card, that's the card I'm bringing home. And this is the card that I have. He had a great year in 1939. He set the all-time record for rookies with 145 RBIs. It's a record that still stands today. He did rather well for considering, his age, and everything. He hit 31 home runs. He batted 327. He had 44 doubles, 340 total bases, 86 extra base hits. These were league leading numbers for him in 1939. Now we go to 1940. In 1940, his sophomore year, typically it's the hard year for baseball players. They usually come down a bit. And Ted Williams did too. His powers numbers went down. He still led the league in runs scored and in on base percentage. But he had only 23 home runs. He did bat 344, which is pretty good, I would say. This is his 1940 play ball card. Again, it's a 3, but that doesn't concern me. I love the card. It's beautiful in my eyes. And Ted, again, had a wonderful year in 1940. He's starting to cement himself. But of course, like, I think he really hits the stride the following year in 1941. Um, the 1940 set, the play ball set, Phil, I don't know if you want to say anything about this, but it's a really interesting set because it includes a lot of the old timers. It includes, cards of guys that played, um, you know, isn't there a Hannes Wagner card, and there's a
Yeah, there's some of the
Cooper, there's a
some of the
bunch of
pre World War One guys are in there. Shoeless Joe Jackson's one of the biggest
right,
cards.
yeah,
Hannes Wagner's in there.
yeah,
Matt Blageouet's in there.
right,
So kind of combines the current stars, the Joe DiMaggio's, the Ted Williams, the Hank Greenbergs, with the previous all-time greats
right.
from the inaugural Hall of Fame class.
And interesting to me,
Yeah.
there's actually a card of Adolfo Luca and Mike Gonzalez, which
Oh
are,
yeah, that's right.
two of the Cuban greats in that set. 41, of course, is Ted Williams' breakout year. He just had a phenomenal season in 1941. I mean, he led the league in almost every single offensive category. I mean, he batted 406, the last major league player to bat over 400. He had a WAR of 10.4, runs 135, 37 home runs, 147 walks. He had a 553 on base percentage, slugging of 735, an OPS of 1.287. I mean, he just had a phenomenal season. And as you can see from his 41 play ball, again, another one of my favorite cards. And, the colorization of the 41 play balls, I like. It's I like cards with color. 41 set is a beautiful set. I'm sure there are collectors out there who have this set complete or trying to put it together. Again, a lot of great stars, Hall of Famers in this set.
Am I correct, Cesar? The 41s are almost all of them are the same images as 40, just colorized.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. They just colorize and give them color.
Okay. It looks like it with the Ted Williams, definitely.
Yeah. One of the things that, one of the great moments of the 41 season was the All-Star game.
Oh, yeah.
The All-Star game, actually, the American League was losing 5-4 in the bottom of the ninth inning with 2 outs when Ted Williams came to bat. And there were 2 guys on base, which I find very interesting because it was Joe DiMaggio and Joe Gordon, a pair of Yankees.
Yeah.
And Ted Williams hit the home run, a walk-off game-winning home run, and drove 2 Yankees home in the 1941 World Series. It's probably one of the highlights of his career, something that he probably, would remember for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most famous home run in All-Star game history, too.
I mean, come on. Losing 5-4, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs.
Definitely. And I believe that image from the home plate congratulations between DiMaggio and Ted Williams.
Yeah, we'll see that one in the next episode.
Yeah, it appears in a 1948 Swell baseball card series.
We'll see that one in the next episode.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
42. Now we're moving over to 42. In 1942, basically there weren't any cards made because now we're into the war. There were limits put on the use of paper and all kinds of other government restrictions. Oh yeah, I forgot about this one.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. There's a couple more 41s. Yep.
Yeah. The other 41 cards of him are these double plays. Double plays were interesting because they're literally 2 cards together, and each of them have a number. And a lot of kids back in the day would cut them out, and you find them every now and then, the two separate, but these are the actual cards with the two players together. And Ted had two cards in the set. He had one with Jim Tabor, and he had one with Joe Cronin.
Yeah, the Cronin is really cool because it's two Hall of Famers sharing on the same card.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's an image of Ted swinging the bat. Okay, let's go to 42 now.
Okay,
I kind of
got
jumped
it.
ahead on that one.
Yeah.
In 42, again, he didn't have a card made, but he did have a Boston picture pack photo. The picture packs were basically put in an envelope, 25 pictures of each player in the team. They were mailed to people or sold at the stadium. There are picture packs for the Red Sox beginning, I believe, in 1940, running through into the 50s, and then later, taken over by J Publishing. But this is his 42 picture pack photo. I love it. Beautiful photo of him smiling. It's got the fake signature at the bottom, but it makes the photo just amazing. One of my
These are pretty oversized, right, Cesar?
These are 7x9, something like that.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah. They're a little bit bigger. They're beautiful photos. I have all the Red Sox picture packs in my collection. Amazing, for images of all the great Red Sox players of the era. So his 42 season, his 42 season, I find very interesting because of what happened in there. So he's drafted in January 1942. And of course, he wanted to play baseball because that's what Ted Williams was, the baseball player. So he actually challenged his draft, and back and forth with the draft boards, had to hire a lawyer. He wanted his draft classification changed because basically he was arguing that he was the sole supporter of his mother, and that him going into the armed forces would put his mother at risk. He actually got his classification changed as he wanted, but this got into the news, and most people know about the war Ted Williams had with reporters, and a lot of reporters didn't like him, and he didn't like a lot of reporters. And when this news came out that Ted had fought his draft classification, the reporters that didn't like Ted Williams had a feast day on this. They cooked him in the press, and this turned a lot of people against him. When he shows up for to play baseball at Fenway Park at the beginning of the 42 season, he was actually booed by a lot of fans. I mean, it was really hard on him. They made he was getting cooked. The consensus among other players and Major League Baseball was split. There were people that want him to stay playing. There were people that thought he needed to go. So in May of 1942, he went ahead and signed up for the Navy. So he, registered some from Navy. The deal was that he would go in as soon as the season was over. So he was able to play out the 42 season. And again, he had an amazing Ted Williams season, even with all the stuff going on outside of baseball for him. He had a WAR of 10.5. He had, he scored 141 runs, 36 home runs, 145 walks, 356 batting average, just on and on and on. Well, he wins the Triple Crown in 1942. his first Triple Crown. But when it came time to vote for MVP, who votes for MVP? The sports writers, right? Like this,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
and so they gave the MVP to Joe Gordon of the Yankees. Joe Gordon, hey, he was a great player, right? But in my opinion, I don't think he had an MVP season. And to be fair, he did lead the league in two categories. Joe Gordon did. He led the league in strikeouts with 95, and he led the league in grounding into double plays. Those were the only two offensive categories that he actually led the league in, while Ted Williams just about led the league in everything else.
Yeah, and that was probably the second time, I guess, he lost an MVP where he could have won in 41 with DiMaggio.
He could have won in 41, DiMaggio. I give DiMaggio a little bit more because he did lead the league in a couple of categories.
Yeah.
DiMaggio did. And, he's with the Yankees. And, they won the pennant. The Red Sox finished second, but the Yankees won the pennant. So I give DiMaggio, the
little more credit.
But Joe Gordon, come on.
Yeah, that was a joke.
Give me a break. That was literally a stab in the back. So in 1943, Ted actually, joins the Navy. He's going to become a pilot. So they send him to, pilot school. So he's going to school. He's learning all about aviation and everything he needs to learn to be a pilot. The only card made of him is this MP and Company 1943 card. These were kind of printed in strips and kids cut them out. So it's kind of hard to get them with straight edges. They scored a 1, but again, it's a complete card. You can see all the edges and everything. He himself, it's just a drawing of him, or the best they could do in a drawing. And these were generic, I think. A couple of players share the same image, especially with the second issue of this set, which is in 1949. There were some players that were changed, and they used the same image from 43 for one guy, and then in 49 for another. But anyway, so Ted actually, while in learning to fly in Chapel Hill, they would put a baseball team together, and they were playing baseball out there, so Ted was learning to fly and playing baseball at the same time, in 43. And in July of 1943, they actually allowed him to return to Fenway Park to play in an exhibition all-star game, which Babe Ruth actually was managing the American League All-Star team. So Ted Williams put on his Boston Red Sox uniform in 1943, even though he wasn't officially with the team at that time. And he plays in this All-Star game, which allows him, to meet Babe Ruth. And, Ted was in awe of Babe Ruth, to say the least. And Babe Ruth was, actually interesting about this is that, Babe Ruth, kind of like, was a little fanboy of Ted Williams. I'll read a quote from him that supposedly he said to Ted when he met him. He said, "Hiya, kid. You remind me a lot of myself. I love to hit. You're one of the most natural ball players I've ever seen. And if my record is broken, I hope you're the one to do it."
Wow.
To Ted Williams.
Wow.
Williams would hit a 425-foot home run in that All-Star game to help the American League win 9-8. After the All-Star game, he goes back to the Navy. He goes back to flying, learning how to fly. And that takes us to 1944. So in 1944, he earns his wings, and he's commissioned as a lieutenant in the Navy, and he stays with the Navy as a flight instructor. So now he's in Pensacola at the naval base there, and he's a flight instructor for the Navy. And they have a baseball team.
Yeah.
They're called the Bronson Bombers. Bronson is the name of the field in Pensacola, and the Bronson Bombers is the team. And this is a photo of the team that I have in my collection. And if you show Phil, you can show there he is. He's got a B on his cap.
Yeah, just like Boston.
But it's really
Pretty cool.
So Ted Williams spent most of the most of World War II learning how to fly, then being a flight instructor. Then finally in 1945, he goes to Hawaii, to Pearl Harbor, where he's awaiting orders for deployment. He's gonna join the war for real. While he's there, guess what? He's playing baseball. So the Navy actually had a very organized baseball league. They had an 8-team league. In this league were people like Stan Musial, Joe DiMaggio, and of course, Ted Williams. This is an image taken from the program for a Navy All-Star game. And here's Ted Williams. He would be one of the stars, of course, of this. So that Navy League was pretty hefty. There were a lot of major league players. There were a lot of stars. There were some minor league players, and whatever. But they played pretty good baseball, and they actually had a World Series where the Navy, played the Army. So the Army had their baseball team, the Navy had their baseball team, and they played a World Series. And 40,000 people went to see that World Series game, which, by the way, was more than what went to see the actual World Series game in the States.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool story.
Cool.
Of course, the war ends, at least Japan surrenders, before Ted is actually sent to fight. He actually stays in the Navy until 1945.
Yeah.
Where in January of 1945, he actually, in 1946, I'm sorry, he stays in the Navy till 1946. And in January of 1946, he exits the Navy and goes back to the Red Sox. Finally, to finish off this era, we have two exhibit cards, salutation exhibit cards. The salutations are because, there's an actual salutation there with their signature. Ted had two. He had one with the 9 showing and one without the 9 showing. My understanding, based on my own research and all that, is that the 9 showing card was actually issued first, probably during World War II. 43, 44, not exactly sure the first appearance of this card. It's tougher to find. It's more expensive when you find it. And that to me makes sense because of the restrictions on paper during World War II. So there weren't that many printed, kind of a short printed sets of these cards. The second card, I believe, was issued probably around 45, 46. It's the one that doesn't show the 9, shows them swinging, following through. That card was reprinted over the years several times. So it's more common, and thus the price is lower. There are people that can, think they can figure out what year a specific card was issued based on the size of the made in the USA and things like that. I don't bother with that. I just wanted 2 good examples of the card in my collection, and that's what you're seeing here. Um, so that brings us to the end of our episode here, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Caesar.
Anything
You did
more?
you did a great job narrating the first third or so of Ted's career, and lots of great cards you had to show from your own personal collection. From what I understand, you're also not only Ted Williams, but a premier Boston Red Sox collector. A lot of pre-war Hall of Famers, things like that as well.
Yeah, I like I said, I Red Sox were my first love in baseball. And I collected them first as a kid, buying the packs and separating the cards. Later, when I became a dealer in the 90s, then, I started buying from other dealers. So I would sell the cards I had, get the money, run to their table,
Makes sense. Makes
buy
sense.
the things and stuff like that. And I
Okay.
love history. I love
Yeah.
the history of baseball. I love the history of the Red Sox.
Mhm.
Of course, anybody who was a Red Sox fan in the 70s and 80s and 90s, like I was, we cried a lot.
Yeah.
Those dreaded Yankees.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, so probably in some future episodes, we'll get into more of the other Boston Hall of Famers and things like that.
Okay. Well, sounds good. And next episode, we're looking forward to I guess, the 1947 to about 55
Yeah,
or so.
yeah, 46,
Right.
47 into like 51, 52.
Okay.
I haven't put that
Okay.
together, but we'll go ahead and do that and
Okay.
continue with Ted Williams for right now. And then as we
Okay.
go in the future, we'll add other things and eventually get back to my specialty, which is Cuban baseball.
Oh yeah, that's the favorite.
That'll be down the road.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil. This has
Well,
been great.
yeah, thank you again, Caesar, for joining us. Your expertise was most welcome, and loved the Ted Williams collection, and looking forward to seeing some more in episode 2.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.